That's my.
Clock, so we'll call to order our planning commission work session for tonight. Commissioner Feld will lead us in the pledge and we'll go from there.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, we've got one main item on the agenda, and that's to talk about signs, so.
Signs everywhere, there's signs. Look what you started. Same answer I gave Kevin earlier.
Well, unfortunately, I can't log into my computer, so I can't put the words on the screen, but all of you had it emailed to you. Sorry, it's such a long, big packet, but I figured I'd give you a plethora of cities. I know there were about half and half cities that do allow them and what their requirements were. And other cities that don't allow them, well, there was very little. And then there was a bunch of other cities that I just couldn't find anything, so I assumed it wasn't allowed, so I didn't give it to you. So, I mean, I didn't bother with West Haven because nothing. So, was there any of them that you liked, you didn't like? Ones you want to model after, not model after,
Certainly not Park City.
keep the same, not keep the same.
American Forks is pretty clever with the stickers and you can go get up to 8 stickers and. I don't know about that. They put that down in the bottom left corner. That was kind of an interesting.
Not likely to
Concept on
happen.
that one.
Getting temporary permission is always so difficult.
I like the idea, but whether. How realistic that is, I don't know. I like the idea.
Now you gotta think, granted, most people, you know, a couple of weeks we're gonna have a yard sale. Then they forget about the signs Friday afternoon, no one's here. I have to be really prepared and really ready for. Then you're. Spending time in the office. Individuals for something. With increasing, so.
But I just want to be clear, I was not being serious. When I like American Forks, I didn't make that clear because
I got it.
I don't think anything we do needs to be a burden on. I mean, if we're using employee resources, I think that's a waste of time. I guess for me, it's kind of the starting point. You know, I read through all of these. I guess I still don't have a clear vision of what the problem is we're trying to solve with this. As we try to write ordinances or do things, you know, it's one of those things that's like, what is it that we're really trying to accomplish? Is there a problem and can we clearly define it? Because if we can't do those things, then it doesn't matter what we come up with. All we're doing is adding more ordinances and regulation. and- Yeah.
Offended by that.
I thought you represented.
Yeah, 'cause- Sorry, I can't open my things at all, so.
Yeah, I can't get on.
Yeah, because the Wi-Fi. But could you read what the current one is again? I think he has it right here.
Really, the current one is, I mean, it's not even a use defined in our ordinance as allowed,
Right,
but we know it goes on, we know people do it. You can't have any off-premise signs. So no, you can't go to Jason's yard, put a sign up saying, you know, that way. You can't put any signs in the public right of way, so the park strips or. Can't put signs on telephone poles, light poles, stop signs,
Tree.
anything that's in the
Public,
street.
right.
So right now, it's pretty much can't do it.
Well, thinking about this after we talked last time, I understand the whole on light poles and public signs and in park strips, you know, that's all public. I still don't see why if I have a buddy down the road that's doing a yard sale and I'm on the corner and I want to put his sign in my yard,
Well, that's, I
why
mean,
that's a problem.
some of the direction we got from the council was they don't want to open up the idea you can put it in the public right of way. So,
No,
it's more of, should we allow it to be signs on people's properties as long as you get permission? If so, how many? And then I'll throw out a little wrench into it and let you guys talk about that after, so.
okay.
yeah, well, the reason I was asking what ours currently is because like what he said, like. What are we trying to solve? I guess you're saying right now that. We don't have anything specific to that except for political, right?
Well, I mean, you do have, it's not that there's nothing, it just says you can't do it. Political signs is its own category and it has I want to say 8 criteria. There is 9, but we're gonna remove one of them as in the time frame, stuff like that.
But that's not what we're talking about right here.
No.
That's a different issue altogether. We're talking about private.
Yep, and
Industry.
rights of ways, light poles, stop signs, that is
Right.
illegal unless we chose to.
Which
open
I
up
don't,
that
I'm
can
okay
of
with
worms,
that.
which
So
I think we're.
it's that kind of, do we want to allow them? Do we not? Want to keep the ordinance exactly the same?
For me, it almost seems like, is it a question of oversight? Like, if I'm a private resident and I want to put a sign in my yard for my buddy. How is it protecting, the city protecting the rights and safety of the public by forbidding that?
It's a legal question.
It is, it's a fine line and a balance, so. Someone earlier asked, what is the problem we're trying to solve? The problem we're trying to solve is in making sure. That we have a city ordinance that is gonna be very clear and concise, but also at the same time. Doesn't violate the First Amendment, because there's been a lot of case law. That talks about how much can a city regulate in terms of signs, which is considered speech. And so what we're ultimately trying to solve is making sure that our ordinance is gonna withstand. And the odds are it's probably not gonna happen, but in the event that someone says, you know what? I want to put my garage sale sign on his front yard and the city stepping in and saying, no, I'm gonna sue, it can go really fast in terms of the legal action. And that's what we're trying to do, is make sure that we have an ordinance that is gonna be clear enough that if it does get tested, we'll be okay.
That's right. I think there's a vulnerability there because the city's responsibility is to protect the health, safety and well-being with its zoning. Again, that's the question, is how is me having my buddy sign in my front yard jeopardizing the health, safety and well-being of the public?
No, I get where you're coming from and
So I want your wrench now.
I do agree, but same, I think it was Gilbert versus some, anyway. That I can't read content of sign. So what's the difference between your buddy's yard sale and Bob's mattress going out of business sign?
One's commercial.
What's the
one's not.
difference between that sign and a billboard sign? What's the difference between, I'm starting to get into, once I allow one, I've got to allow all off-premise signs.
So it really comes down to what's permitted, what's not permitted, not necessarily content. You can't look at it. If someone wants to enforce the ordinance, it's gotta be, is it in violation of city ordinance or is it not? Because you can't look at the content of the sign to determine that. You can't say, he's selling mattresses and they're having a yard sale. Well, he's commercial, that's residential. But now you're in violation of that law. You can't read for content, and make determination on that. It's gotta be based off of what the city will or will not allow. Which means I don't have to look at the content. I just know that it's not allowed. And therefore I can take it out.
Steve, you may have answered this before, but how did it get on our?
Someone came to council meeting, during public comment,
Okay,
just said, you know, I wanted to do a yard sale and I was told yard sale signs aren't allowed. You know, I see everybody doing it anyway. So the council kind of took that comment and then meeting and true later discussed it. And said, well, let's have the planning commission look at it and see if they want to make any recommendations. To make it, you know, to change it. Now, you know, your recommendation could be no, leave it the same, or recommendation could be no, let's change it to this, or change it to that, or however.
and then he couldn't do a yard sale.
Who what?
Who was it in the government that told him he couldn't do a yard sale?
Well, it's not the, it's not the sell, it's the sign.
The sign, okay.
Again, not content.
Outside of their own property.
It's would be myself, the code enforcement officer.
But we had a complainant. Okay.
Well, yeah, she
Then he
came
went
in.
to somebody and somebody said, no, you can't do that. Who was that person?
She didn't say if it was city staff or just somebody that she knows.
Who's gonna enforce it? Because there's so many city ordinances now that people complain about that aren't being enforced, like,
Oh, there's a lot being enforced, but you got one person for 40 some odd
that's what I
thousand
mean. It
people.
seems like people are so upset about like trucks and trailers broke down on the roads and all of that. And
That's
I
the
mean-
police department.
I'm just saying, you see the people complaining all over Facebook about things that aren't being enforced in their neighborhoods. But I think we're gonna worry about yard sale signs,
We already worry about it now.
Because it's in the ordinance.
but it just seems like maybe, I don't know.
Well, again,
That's like, that's kind of at the crux of what.
Yeah,
I'm
it
asking,
just
is
seems like we have
is there a
bigger fish to
problem we're trying
fry.
to solve?
Yeah, people are complaining all, I mean, it's not, I live on 4800, so we don't have it. But people are always complaining, and I know if you go down, I don't know the road, but I call it Meth Haven because it's terrible as you go towards 4000. And I mean, the same broken down mobile home has been sitting there for 3 years. Every time I drive past it. I mean, I just think who's gonna enforce these yard sale signs because the other things aren't being.
I'm going, what?
No, 2400, whatever, you know, because it goes up by the north part. But who's gonna enforce it? Because the other things that are bigger fish to fry that citizens are mad about aren't being enforced. And if they are, then they're just getting tickets, but it's not changing. Maybe I'm just
That's a.
going on the same road.
I know the code enforcement officer goes out every Monday morning and picks up signs. I mean, he
Shamrock
spends
is fine doing that.
2 hours a day, every Monday, pulling down signs. that we're not even in the realm of talking about, because we don't want to talk about the public side of things. So the question really is, you know, how do we, are we gonna say, yes, you can have signs, you can have 3 of them for however many days before, but realize that now I can have a going at a business sign in people's yards. Then there's nothing I can do.
Is there something that you can put into place that doesn't allow the crossover from area zone commercial to residential?
The only, in commercial signs, and stop me if I'm, are not necessarily First Amendment rights for, you know, Wendy's is not
It's not.
a right of speech. It's a commercial sign. So there can be, but the Gilbert versus whatever says I can't read content. So if I have a sign in your yard and his yard and his is
Political.
Bob's mattress,
Doesn't
and yours
matter.
is- it doesn't matter.
Alright, I see what you're saying.
I kind of get into that realm of, well, I'm either allowing whatever, or I'm not allowing anything. And
Steve?
most cities try to, it's easier to say nothing. Then you're gonna get,
And saying
Everybody's-
some things and then it's challenged and you lose and.
I'm not trying to discourage anything, I'm
No.
just throwing,
I want to get as big a picture on this as I can get,
To
so.
your knowledge, when was the last time we had a complaint about this?
other than her,
Other than,
Yeah. people come and say, hey, can I put out yard sale signs? And you tell them you can't.
That's not a complaint.
That-
You're asking for a complaint,
Nothing about a
not a
complaint.
request.
It's. I'd have to talk to Brock. I don't recall a lot of people other than they're all over the place. Please go take them down.
that's, okay.
But a complaint of why can't I put them up?
And if we didn't do anything, if we left the ordinance where we are, what kind of position are we in?
They're just not allowed.
When was the
And people
last
would still do
citation?
it and
And we don't
When
enforce
was
it.
the last citation given?
Well, there's nothing in the ordinance that says if you put a sign out on the flag or the stop sign that I give you a citation. There's nothing in there. There's no repercussions to it. Just the
so a
time.
lot of that teeth, huh? Essentially.
Yeah, people just take your sign, you know, I'll drive by and if there's something in the park strip, I don't care what it is. Other than a political sign, I call the candidate, say, move it.
Yeah.
But if it's in the park strip, we just take it.
Yeah.
And I've had people say, well, it may have cost me X amount of dollars, but if I can get it in there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you take it Monday, I got 3 days of free advertising regardless of how much it cost me. So it's almost, unless we put a penalty associated with off-premise signs in public right of way, we're always gonna have this problem.
And some of those cities did do that, that if they find a sign, of course, everything has an address for you to locate it. That there's a penalty phase that says if they're on past a certain time, that you'll be charged a certain amount per sign. It's like $5, $10 per sign. Now, that's not an ordinance now, and that would maybe curtail it, but that's not the question. I think the question is, to be allowed or not. And
The ones that don't have addresses, you just say, okay, you know, they're here. If you wanna come pick them up, it's gonna cost you.
Yeah.
They don't come pick them up.
they never do. You know,
Well,
then you
even
can
at
say-
$5 or $10, you spend more to collect the fee than it was even worth the.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, that's one reason why I searched high. I mean, normally I just go around this community, you know, area, Davis, Weber. Go
And
into
some
Park
of the
City.
Park cities and some of the other ones do try to regulate
They do.
content very prescriptively
You know, I
on
can't,
that, but.
can't tell you they've passed the muster on that either.
So when you say no signs, like I've noticed on the corner, they'll put up, like for Halloween, I know it's probably coming out, they'll say the Stake Center has this party or whatever. I'm not LDS, so I just know that happens because that's there. So that would not be allowed.
Well, there are caveats. Anything that's benefiting the community, like we kind of talked about, you said, oh, we'll have a community yard sale. So if it's a city sponsored sign, like my public hearing signs,
Mhm.
they're allowed in public property because, well, public and to public. Roy High football games, even
Yeah.
though you have to charge, it's still a community,
And there's
Signage
no
saying-
profit anyway, so
there's a game.
different thing.
It's the, you
So
know,
the churches could put up their things saying they're having,
not in the right of.
like, because they put them in the
But
park
they-
strips at the corner, so you know where to head to.
Taken the.
We can take it.
McFarland Corn, they can't put theirs up.
I've seen that one.
Well, it's gone now. Someone took
Yeah, I
it.
was gonna say it's.
And I've taken those signs. before. the big corn.
Real estate signs is protected. There are a few protected class type signs. So real estate is one of them, open house. Those we can't really touch. Other than if there's, you come to an intersection and there's 14 of them. I'm sorry, you don't need 14, only 4, take the rest.
Well, and the line of sight should protect a little bit of that. So.
So that, right now, how it is, we can put up political signs, I can stare at those in people's yards, but I can't stare at a yard sale sign, so
Political signs are protected.
that seems. a little-
Campaign sign.
Well, you can think about
I
it.
understand it's campaign
Political
sign.
signs are protected by the politicians who want them.
Yes, I get it,
But
I'm
they're-
just
But
saying,
we're talking about two different things, because a political sign by First Amendment is a different than a campaign sign. Because a
Well-
political sign can be interpreted.
yeah,
as a
I
political
get what you're
statement
saying, I'm just
versus a
wrapping
campaign
it all
sign
into
versus
one.
something-
You would say all Republicans are welcome to my yard sale. All Democrats are welcome to my yard sale.
Campaign signs are
That's not-
protected.
that's
Well, you
not-
know, if the city really wanted to do it, they could just
All
start
the
having
different
community
ones,
yard
everybody
sales that are
else.
supported by the city once or twice a year.
Farmer market every Wednesday.
That's not a yard sale,
I think we're looking for some.
Closest thing.
that's a farmer.
I think so
If
too.
the city can't endorse it, then it should be in the right of plain and simple. And they're not gonna.
And,
endorse
and
everybody's
you know, the line isn't here. Cause you got some protected that you can't touch. By Supreme Court or what have you. So yes, they're kind of the outliers of this issue. There's nothing I can do about it unless someone challenges that at Supreme Court level and they find it was unconstitutional. That, how they did it. That's not for me to start. Or regulate.
It's not my-
I just know there's, campaign signs. Yard or lot, houses for sale. Those are protected. Free speech, political signs, Remember one from Clinton that I just keep laughing at every day. I talk about it. He wanted a freedom of speech wall. I said, that's a great idea. You ready for the consequence? He goes, what do you mean? He says, well, so-and-so is a dumbass. You can spray paint that across that wall as many times as you erase it. And that's free speech. They went, oh, wall never got built.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to excuse myself. I have a field crew that's in Nevada right now with a problem.
Oh,
So I gotta go back to the office.
okay.
Sorry, thank you.
Drive careful.
You just-
The plus side is if Brock had to drive around looking for yard sale signs, it's a great way to get him out of the office to find other things that are wrong.
Oh, we'll just say he's got more to do than he's got time for.
Hello, Brock.
And it's a never ending battle, there's always code violations and things like that. Nobody wants to live in a nanny state where, you can't even grow your grass 1 1/4 inch because there's an ordinance that says it can only be 1 inch and it's the wrong shade of green when you grew it anyway. I mean, it's like these battles are just
Well,
hard to fight. And that's where if there is a problem, then let's identify the problem. Let's
Right.
find a solution. If there's not a problem and things aren't broke, I mean, that world is complex enough.
Sometimes doing nothing is the best solution.
well, having regulation for those, having a regulation for those to know and say, okay, I'll abide. Then that's helpful, right? Having some regulation is better than having no regulation because that creates chaos. So, and I know, obviously, from what I do, that there are people who don't know about the rule and they just do it. Until one of us says, hey, you can't do that. And they go, okay, sorry, I didn't know that. So we're still gonna have that, and that's what a code enforcement's job is to do, is to go out and take care of those issues. But we're not gonna eliminate it entirely with making any changes at all. But making it so that it stays on in the ordinance that says it's not allowed. It lets the ones who want to understand, and then hopefully the others discover it eventually. But if we convolute it too much, I think it just becomes more complicated. Fines and fees and places and how many and everything else.
I mean, if we had the ability to read content, I think it'd be a lot easier.
Yeah.
To say, okay, that's a yard sale sign.
Yep.
They could be up so many days, but that part that, any other commercial business or stuff can throw them in there. To me, that's where, do we want? Where do you go and how do you do it? I don't want to direct this conversation, so.
Well, coming from a guy that does it, I would rather I have clear, precise information that allows me to do that. But according to the Supreme Court, I don't. I don't have that option.
It's always the lawyer's fault.
Well, there's some of these.
Judge, in that
ordinances
case,
that
it was the
made it a
judge.
misdemeanor.
Judge's fault.
I was like, holy cow, that's way harsh to put it in there as a misdemeanor.
So,
Yeah, that gets a little.
So I,
We couldn't have it written the way a lot of police officer laws, whatever, you get law enforcement laws are written very generally so that it can be subject to interpretation by the officer. And then that's where it goes to court, I guess, and then it can be decided whether or not that it was a correct judgment of the officer at that time or not. But that's why it's just, you can,
Zoning, I like it. It's much easier for me and others in my
Because
position
it's clear
if it's-
cut.
if it's black and white.
right, exactly.
The minute you start putting gray in it.
Yep.
Then it's my judgment versus your judgment versus the homeowner's judgment, and the way the state has come out and says, well, if the homeowner interprets that ordinance that way, he's correct and I'm not. So if it's black and white, it makes everybody,
I'm not against that. I like black and white too. I'm the same way because I'm one of those gray people where I don't live in black and white. I live in gray.
I like gray. I like it when, the ordinance does say, if this is a situation, you can do this, this and this, that helps, but
agreed.
I don't know if this has one of those, this and this.
Yeah, so the Supreme Court took that away. It's black and white, the Supreme Court.
So we either allow it and face everything that comes with it, or you don't allow it and everything
Face
comes with
everything
it.
that comes with it.
The on public property is still gonna be an issue regardless of what direction we go. Because people
So
are,
I'm curious, does the little yard signs people have up with the little flag on the stand, does that count as a yard sign?
what do you mean?
You know, the
Like
little
welcome
flags,
spring,
like
happy
welcome
Easter.
spring, stuff like that, does that count as a yard sign?
The
That's
decoration.
art, that's art
Decoration.
and yard decoration.
But what if it says stuff though?
So if I put flowers on my yard sign, then I can call it art.
Well, if you want, you could be creative and get some of those bushes that you carve out. And you can carve,
Like that
yard
scissor
sell
house, yeah.
and then plant them.
Oh,
And
man.
everything's yard.
Only if I was that talented.
Then it's more. Is it natural if I carve it? Well, it's vegetation versus, I
Vegetation.
Carbon footprint, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
mean,
Well, I mean, no, but that's a legitimate question, because I'm like, these little yards, like I have one in my yard. It says something, it's making a statement. And I'm wondering, like, does that follow the same
free
category?
speech versus.
Yeah, free speech statement.
Welcome.
Now you better drive back.
Welcome.
Just kidding.
I smell children for,
Yeah.
especially nowadays, because it's on my yard,
Oh.
you know.
If we've had one occurrence in man's memory of an argument or complaint, I'm not sure that I'm interested in doing anything.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's a big enough problem to actually make this.
And garage sales are over now. I'm just kidding. Too cold.
Well, I mean, I will say this
That's
out
what we
loud.
can Base our decision on. Well played.
The weather.
I will say, I think it's
See you next
silly
week.
to make it so people can't have yard sale signs, but I get that if you allow that, then it opens a door for other things, but
He's not allowing it.
yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no,
I get
don't get
that
me wrong.
argument,
I wish there was a way,
No,
Yeah.
but what you're saying is it's not allowed right now. It's just happening.
right?
So if we leave it,
because what's happening is it's all on public property.
It's going on light poles and stop signs and that's,
Yeah, I mean, that makes.
well, we have a big problem with it, but. I mean,
We have
it's,
no legal problem.
well, it's
Our
not
policy.
allowed and people are doing it, but that's gonna happen
regardless.
regardless. I mean, the ordinance prohibits it. That's,
No,
I think it should stay.
and that's probably in every city in America.
If
I
you
don't
want to
think that's
complain
a-
about it, send the code enforcement guy out on Friday night, tear them all down, so Saturday morning, nobody sees the sign. Then they'll start getting complaints.
I don't think you could afford rock on Friday night.
Then you're gonna pay overtime and.
Yeah, because I can tell them must
Yeah,
come in on
that's-
Monday.
That's when you're gonna get replaced, but you don't get them out of
You might
that.
quit.
So,
What did you say, Jason?
Oh, my viewing opinion is just limited, and it's to my general, I guess, age group or whatever, because not everybody buys into social medias or whatnot, but like when I'm selling stuff, I don't put up signs, I put it online, I put, you know, if I'm going to an estate sale, I'll go to some estate sales and I look for estate sales, but I go online, I don't look at newspapers. I don't look at signs on the road. I don't care about signs on the road at all. I just put a GPS coordinate in and I go and I advertise. And I think this generation that's using more technology is gonna go that route. They're not gonna put signs up anyway.
So when
Yeah, only
we,
the-
old guys like me die off, then we don't have a problem.
I did want to say it,
That's a solution.
but maybe the only people putting up signs are the
What,
people that don't
billboards?
like technology and use technology. That would be a generalization that's incorrect, I'm sure. But I don't see the purpose of having a sign now. I
Yeah.
don't know your.
I mean, in a lot of cases, I think that does happen.
Because people just, they've got the address anyway. How do they find out about the yard sale to begin with? The signs
Driving
kind of.
by.
drove down the street and this
big green on 9-inch
sign had an arrow.
1,800.
Yeah.
This way and that way.
Oh, yeah, I still stop at yard sales if there's a
So I,
sign.
I just stop if they're there. Well, one time they're cleaning out their garage. I'm like, having a yard sale?
Well, not anymore, you know, yard sales.
They're either over. Hold down. It's hard to
Problems,
afford.
I drive down the street and I have no cash. It's like.
Oh, everyone takes Venmo now.
Yeah,
so
they do
like,
Venmo now, yeah. Don't you know?
You don't need cash.
I've got that.
You just Venmo.
Usually it's pretty
I
obvious. the
once
person's
saw
having a
a
garage sale.
KitchenAid for sale on the side of the road. I
Their own sign.
turned
on
my
their
van
yard
around
saying,
so
"Hey, This is a
fast."
garage sale, I'm not putting out in the garage.
So
But that should be allowed.
direction, thoughts, I mean,
I'm not
I think
sure.
a sign on their own property saying yard sale. That way somebody's driving by and goes, are they cleaning out the garage or is that a yard sale? But they can say, hey, yes, this is a yard
Well,
sale.
that's the one sign they're gonna clean up.
Yeah, it is. But that should be allowed. That part.
But to me, it's like,
Everything
should
else,
we-
no.
should that be put in the ordinance or just?
Are you saying put in the ordinance to say yard sale specifically, or are you saying just not,
Should we maintain the status quo or should
just
we?
leave it that
alter
people are
the
just gonna do
ordinance?
it anyway?
Cause if I say you can have one yard sale sign in your yard and I own Bob's mattress, can I put one sign in my yard?
If my neighbor really wants to do that, I guess they can.
Bob's mattresses yard
If I allow one, I gotta allow all.
Yeah, I get what you're
If
saying. Yeah,
We
I
just
get what
say
you're saying.
none. Cause the one sign that's always gonna get cleaned up is be the one in your yard, cause I took everything down anyway.
I would vote for status quo, and if it becomes an issue, then we can revisit it.
Pretty much where I'm at as well.
Yeah, I'm fine leaving it because I think people are just gonna keep
I
doing
agree.
what they're doing, but.
Cause again, even if we said, yes, you can have three. They're gonna put it in the public right away anyway, which is not part of the code we're talking about.
Is that the direction we want to give Steve?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah,
got it.
that's a- and I will let go.
I mean, I like,
We're doing
I
nothing.
agree with you that people should be able to, but at the same time, it's
That
like,
is no
people are
sign.
already doing it, so
Already
it's
doing it.
like,
We're gonna do it anyway, but.
yeah.
You lawbreakers.
So I don't know.
It's called spillage and push the
Okay.
industry.
Then that's all I've got, Chair.
If I got a car and I'm selling my car in my driveway and I got a sign on the car saying
Yeah,
for
does
sale, is
that
that?
count? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's so many little,
We can go down so many rabbit holes
Yeah.
on it, and that's where I just don't know that we have.
How many angels can
problem.
dance on the head of a pin? Okay, I mean, at the end of the day.
How many what?
Angels can dance on the head of a pin.
Well, that's not what I thought you said.
Okay,
I don't know what you said, but I was like, Forrest, what you been doing?
so our next item is Commissioner's Minute. I don't have anything to any of the other.
I do have a random weird idea that
I'm
Steve
not
might hate me for. I was thinking, you know how the UTA does a free writing day in like February usually, or a week or whatever?
Uh-huh.
I was wondering if we could encourage maybe the planning commission and the city council and some of the city workers maybe take advantage of that, and Roy, and try to like, we could even have like, I would help with this if you wanted, but little jobs they have to do, like go grocery shopping for something, or so that we can actually, because the UTA comes and asks us about this all the time, but like
I do that all the
a
time.
lot of us never use the public transportation, but I see people, especially disabled people, using it all the time, and I'm like, we don't really. I'm just thinking like, if someone asks me about a bus stop somewhere, I have no really great input about it, because I never use that bus stop, you know what I'm saying, like, so it's just a random idea I'm putting out into the universe.
Are you saying like a treasure hunt?
Well, it could be that, or we can just say, oh, we're just gonna write it into wherever.
You know, you can do it. all
Or
on
there
your
could be an
phone.
object,
You
yeah.
Just hit.
Well, that's what I'm
transit,
saying. You would learn how to, everyone would have to learn how to.
Just hit
We
the.
put
use
signs directing us.
Yeah. That's where we. might
Nothing
need-
for
I
sale.
use the-
Free
Like I
bus
use the
ride.
train a lot, but I don't use the buses a lot, and that's what you'd have to use to get around Roy would be the buses, not the train.
You know how many buses there are in Roy and where they go?
I don't know all of
There's
them.
one
no,
on
That's what I'm
3500
saying.
west that comes once an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, one on 1900 west that comes once every 15 minutes. And you have one, I think, goes from Clearfield Station to Roy Station. I think, because there's only three,
Well, there's,
and the only city street it really goes down is 4000.
yeah, there's some on 4,000. There's at least a couple stops on Midland.
Well, Midland is 35.
Yeah, and then there's some on
There's not a
1900.
lot of buses. to
Yeah, that's
get
what I'm
around
saying.
Roy.
They've taken a lot of the stops out. I ride buses with.
And that's I'd love it, but it's a UTA thing, how many stops, how many buses.
No, I know, but sometimes they come to us for, like, they've been like, do you have suggestions about this? A
Oh, yeah, we
couple
give them
meetings,
suggestions.
so. I'm just saying that it would be maybe a way for us to be like, well, we've written this, we can actually say it, and it's helpful, not helpful.
Are you talking about where they say kids are gonna die because there's too much traffic?
Yes, it's.
Well,
Oh,
not just that, just, I mean, there's just
like
lots
when
of.
we say the
reasons.
traffic is so much and so right, you know.
Well, there's
people say ride
traffic.
The bike or the bus.
Some of the spots look just like very odd spots for a stop, like they're not
Yeah,
safe
they
or.
It's all-
Anyway, I'm just saying, it's just an idea. We don't have to do it. I'm just putting it out there to think about.
You would get some still a little.
Okay, that's
my
fine.
role,
So you can.
Said he would do.
Well, it would more just be for us to experience what
Sorry.
citizens in Roy are experiencing, if that makes sense, like, so that we have better input when we are asked about it, not just like, well, it looks like this, but we don't actually use it, so it's, and yeah, that's just my idea, just out there, it's just a random idea. Like I said, it doesn't have to happen.
I would ride the bus with you.
Oh, thanks.
I know how to ride the bus.
Nice.
Just follow your phone.
Yeah.
Tells you when to walk. Did you know that? If you hit the transit button and it stops and then it says, walk to this stop, and it shows you little footprints.
Nice. I haven't used that one. I've only used the train one.
It's on Google.
Oh.
I ride it with my students.
Any other items from the commissioners? Okay,
I
staff
really,
update.
I really don't have anything to update. Subdivision ordinance should be, I'm hoping finalized next week. I got meeting with the attorneys and the engineers, so hopefully the technical and legal stuff get ironed out, and I'm hoping to have a public hearing on the next meeting with it. So we can get it to the council. So they can vote on it in the December or January. So we meet the February 1st deadline. Other than that. Yeah,
Did you show everyone the plaque last time that you wanted that? Roy was
Haven't.
saying?
just sitting in my office.
You should bring that sometime, since some of them got,
You got
I
a
didn't
class?
really help on that, but some people did.
Yeah, the Roy City received an award for their station area plan.
It
Yay.
wasn't a big enough pause, dude.
Station area.
Not stationary, but station area.
That new off ramp at Roy to go like to Riverdale, that's pretty slick. And like the turning,
Other than the turn left, they need to redo.
It's a little odd.
Because it's a single lane and they
Yeah.
go.
yeah.
It's like the first time I took that, I had to,
Left field, didn't we?
yeah.
Oh, I thought we were talking about good things.
Station area plan to-
That could just use a little work, but it is,
And the double turn lane at Midland Drive, whoever came up with that should be speaker of the house because it is super
Driving what?
19.
19.
whoever didn't finish Midland Drive to 19 and 4800.
Can't negative Nelly. It is so good in the morning. The traffic is not backed all the way up. You can
South.
turn 2 times.
We had so many accidents and
Awesome.
deaths right there.
That was
They-
awesome. Have you seen that?
The state did that one.
Double left.
So,
I haven't seen that.
That's,
Okay, that's all I've got.
okay, a motion is in order.
so
I motion to dismiss.
All in favor?
Aye.
a motion.
Anybody
to
opposed?
dismiss.
We are dismissing and I'm gonna make Jason laugh some more.
Oh, man, I wish this would have worked.
Things up.
Where's Claude when I need him?
Do enough trying to hold my tongue in these.
Yeah, then that's one down.
So